Hi everybody, I'm Greg Fishel. Welcome to bonus weather video number 4 for this week on this Thursday, June 15th. And we're going to be taking a look at the number of 90-degree days and whether or not there are any interesting trends here and whether or not there are some explanations behind those trends. This isn't going to be a terribly long video, but I hope it's one that you find at least mildly interesting. So here is the record at the RDU airport going back to 1945. 1944 was when the observations started to be taken at the airport, but they only got in part of the year. So I just wanted to start with the first complete year of data, which was 1945. And this goes all the way up through the summer of 2022, even though the x-axis label stops at 2020. It's simply a function of there wasn't enough room to get additional labels in there, but the data does go all the way to last year. And you can see the one summer that we had the 91 days at or above 90, and last summer we were fairly high as well at 81. Okay, so that's the overall record, and what's interesting about this is that if you take a look at a trend line, you draw the straightest line you can through all of that data, you can see an increase from the mid-30s all the way up to the mid-50s. But there is more here, I think, than meets the eye, and that's what I wanted to talk about today. So here is your overall record here, okay? Now, if you take the period from 1945 to 1995, which is when the observations were taken by human beings, but more importantly, the sighting of the instrumentation was very, very standard. It wasn't close to the runways. It was in a favorable position to take a climatic record. It's exactly where it was supposed to be. And so you can see here, if you do a trend line for the period 1945 to 1995, it's actually slightly down, not drastically, but a little bit, okay? So certainly no increase during that period of time. But then in 1996, the ASOS was installed, which is the Automated Surface Observing System. And look what happens to the trend line after that. Not only does it reverse, but the slope of it is significantly more positive than the initial slope is negative, okay? So there's no question that something happened here. The instrumentation was, became automated. It was installed, I believe, in February of 1996. And even though we still have our ups and downs, which is perfectly normal, natural variability from one year to the next, the overall trend is definitely up. Now, a couple of things, or at least one thing, maybe a couple of things I want to point out here. You can obviously say that at least part of this increase, if not most of it, is due to the change in the sighting of the instrumentation, okay? Now, I point this out because sometimes people will take statistics and use them and manipulate them in ways to suit whatever argument they want to try to make. I could have shown you this and said, oh, that's proof of climate change, okay? But I don't think that's what's driving this at the airport. I think it's more of an environment issue in terms of where the actual instrumentation is located. Now, before you take that and run with it and say, oh, well, then, there isn't any problem, is there? Well, the folks at what used to be the National Climatic Data Center and now is the National Center for Environmental something, NCEI, can't remember what the I stands for. But anyway, they have many, many, many more observation sites than just the RDU airport, even for this immediate area. They have cooperative, what we call cooperative observations, where people take high, low, and precipitation readings and report that every day. The State Climate Office has its own network in North Carolina all across the state. And so anytime there is an instrumentation sighting issue, that is accounted for in the overall climate record. So I don't want you to think that things like this are ignored and used for the argument of, oh, it's global warming or it's climate change, okay? They're taking all that into account, and even when you take out data like this and look at the rest of the stuff which is cited properly, it still shows the same increase, okay? So there is no question that the climate is warming, but it's one of those things where I feel really, really strongly about the fact that we need to always be honest about, number one, the data, and number two, what is driving the data. And if all I showed you was this, and that's all the folks that study the climate were looking at, then you could be seriously misled, okay? But the bottom line is that when you look at all the data, it still shows significant warming, not only in this part of the world, but across the world in general, with the biggest warming going on in the Arctic. So this is not an anti-global warming talk or an anti-climate change talk at all. It's just that this is the site that we use to give you an idea every day as to what the high and low was and how it compares to normal and all that kind of stuff. And I think it's only fair that you know that these numbers, I think, are being artificially inflated because of the change in the siting of the instrumentation, which took place back in 1996. Okay, I hope that makes a little bit of sense. That is bonus weather video number 4 for this week. We'll have the final one of the week coming up tomorrow. It may be a little abbreviated because I'm going to be heading up to Raleigh for the weekend to visit my son and some good friends up there. But I'll get something out to you. And again, that'll be coming up tomorrow afternoon. So you all take care, everybody, and we'll talk to you again tomorrow. See you later.